Welcome in, welcome in. Hope you've enjoyed your week. Glad you're here with us on this Thursday evening. Once again, it's me, Ty Hayes, joined by the one, the only, the man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyways, Kyle Henderson. Kyle, how you doing this evening?
I am doing amazing. I am currently en route from Tuscaloosa to the ATL, currently in beautiful Anniston, Alabama. So made a pit stop. It's been a busy day as we continue to preview the upcoming SEC title game. Really excited to be here. And of course, thank you very much for Bleacher Report for giving us this platform to talk about the biggest game in college football taking place this Saturday.
Dare I say the national championship taking place this Saturday. Certainly an early playoff game taking place this Saturday. And hey, if we both couldn't be there, we were going to make sure one of us was there for all of you, the people. Today, we're going to be talking about how Alabama can overcome the Georgia Bulldogs in this game, a Georgia Bulldogs team that, quite frankly, has been fantastic on pretty much every level, but Alabama is trending up at the right time. Kyle, where do we begin on this? Should we start with Alabama's offense attacking Georgia's defense, the vaunted Georgia defense that has been up and down this season, but more often than not, I mean, they are stingy? Or do we talk about Alabama's defense that looks like they're returning to old form against this Georgia offense that's entered into a brand new age?
Yeah, I think let's start with the Georgia offense versus the Alabama defense because during Kirby Smart's press conference today, he talked about Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers and was pretty vague with some of those injury reports, and I get it. It's kind of coach speak, and you want to throw off Alabama as much as possible, but I'm going to go out and let's say that those guys are going to be able to play in this SEC title game. I don't think there's anything that's going to stop those two young men from competing at the highest level in a marquee game. This is an NFL-type game. Remember a couple years ago where there was all those NFL guys when LSU and Alabama played? This is a similar type atmosphere. I mean, you have a lot of NFL-type guys that are going to go head-to-head in this game, and I think Brock Bowers is certainly one of them. So it's going to be interesting to see how Alabama plays Brock Bowers because this last game, you saw a lot of Caleb Downs as a true freshman playing at that star position. Now, is that going to be the case against Brock Bowers? So, theoretically, you could have a true freshman going against one of the best players in all of college football. That's going to be a pretty remarkable story if that does take place. Ladd McConkey can stretch the field downfield. He's a vertical threat, and Carson Beck has been a quarterback who has been able to really transform. People talk about the transformation of Jalen Milroe. How about the transformation of Carson Beck? 3,500 yards in the season, and, of course, you have Milton in the backfield, Edwards as well. So this is a balanced team. Alabama's defense is certainly tested this season. We've talked about that each week. We continue to get on. But I think, you can't stop Brock Bowers. 100%. You just can't. You're going to be able to try to contain him, but you can't stop him, and that's going to be the challenge.
No, here's a question I have for you, Kyle. We talked about this lightly the other day on your show, but it really sparked something with me. Alabama is blessed in this secondary to have multiple different options. Is there a world where we could see the safeties move from being what they currently are, Key and Downs, to Downs, Malachi Moore? Amos moves out to cornerback so that you can put Terry and Arnold at that star position to kind of have him help out on Brock Bowers. Because you're right. Brock Bowers is the chess piece in college football. You're going to have to do something about him. Terry and Arnold is as good as it gets in terms of a secondary player, can genuinely play every position. What do you think about that?
I think it's a possibility for sure, and especially if, let's say they start out the game and you have Caleb Downs, who does start at the star position in some, interesting defensive setup, and he starts getting eaten up. I think you have to put the best man on the job. That could be Terry Arnold. Terry Arnold's playing at a very high level, but, I mean, let's not forget Malachi Moore. Malachi Moore has been their star position player. It's just who can athletically and size-wise match up with Brock Bowers is, I think, probably the most interesting storyline on that side of the ball. Kirby Smart said today, he's like, look, people are saying that Brock Bowers didn't play because we're holding out because of Alabama. He's like, that's not true. Those guys could not go. Look, I don't think it's going to be a game-time decision or whatever. I think he's going to be ready to go. There's no way he misses this game. We've heard this time and time again. Big-time players rise up in big-time games, and he's not going to sit this one out. And on the same side, when you look to Alabama's offense, Jace McClellan, the same thing for Coach Saban. He said that he's pretty much day-to-day and hasn't been able to do much up to this point. And today I was curious to see, how he fared at practice. But those are kind of the injury reports that we're looking forward to going into this game.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, I completely agree with you. I heard Kirby talk about we don't know if Ladd will be there. We don't know
Yeah.
if Brock will be there. At the point where they both played before last week, they're ready to go, right? Kirby Smart is not going to gamble with the health of a player on a whim, right? He's not going to put them in there one week and then sit them the next. He's going to make sure they're good to go. Both of those gentlemen will be there. They're X factors in this offense. Now, let's talk about the biggest X factor for Alabama's defense. Do you think it's Lawson? Do you think it's Turner and Braswell? Do you think it's Downs, or
Yeah.
do you think it's someone else or a position group completely different?
Oh, 100%. I think it comes down to the outside backers. I think you got Chris Broswell and Dallas Turner. Now, when you look at the statistics of the game, Georgia has only allowed 10 quarterback sacks on the entire season, which is just phenomenal, right? So that shows kind of the strength of their offensive line when we start to talk about another factor on Georgia's offense has been the ability to protect Carson Beck. So on the flip side, you have Dallas Turner, who has 9 sacks. You have Chris Broswell, who has 8 sacks. Those guys have to get to the quarterback in some fashion. And if you're going to have pressure up the middle, maybe a Jahad Campbell or a healthy Deontay Lawson, I don't know what it's going to be, but that has to be a main storyline. I think the play of how are you going to stop Brock Bowers, along with the fact is how can you get to Carson Beck and create either a sack or force him to make some sort of bad decision to where it turns into a turnover for Alabama. Turnovers, of course, are going to be monumental in every game, but I think big plays early on in this game are really going to set the tempo for a hard-hitting game. This is a heavyweight fight, and Alabama's pass rush has to get after those guys. But I think Dallas Turner, in a game where everybody's been talking about, a Brock Bowers or a Jalen Milroe, I think it's, he'll probably be known after this game, Dallas Turner, for sure.
That's why I wanted to pose that question to you. There's a lot of discussion about what I believe is the X factor for Alabama's offense, but we'll get there. And who I believe is the X factor for Georgia's offense and Brock Bowers. But I look at this right here. Carson Beck, you started off the show by saying it. Carson Beck has been very impressive this year.
Yeah.
He's a quarterback that's continued to grow. I think a lot of people don't appreciate the numbers he has put up.
Yeah.
He has been really impressive this year, and we need to give flowers and credit where it's due. But he has not played a pass rush duo like he will face on Saturday. Now, Tennessee was good at getting to the quarterback this year. I'll give them that. They were very good. They don't have 2 of those guys, and I all respect to Tennessee's guys, I don't think either of their guys are Chris Braswell or Dallas Turner. I think that inherently creates a situation where Alabama can make Carson Beck uncomfortable. And Kyle, that's going to be my first key to victory for Alabama this evening. You have got to make the Georgia Bulldogs uncomfortable. The one thing we've seen out of Georgia, they have been far too comfortable for 2 seasons. And credit to Kirby. Credit for the team. That's good coaching.
Yeah.
But he's going up against an equally incredible coach, the GOAT, Nick Saban. If anybody can make them uncomfortable, it's Alabama. Kyle, how does Alabama make Georgia uncomfortable?
Well, I think you said it. I mean, you got to get heat on the quarterback, and you got to be able to do that frequently. I don't know if they can. I mean, it's going to be a really big challenge for Alabama on the defensive side to be able to do that. A big turnover will certainly set the tempo. I think they can also challenge Georgia in a variety of ways and make them uncomfortable in a game that really, let's face it, is a home field advantage for the Georgia Bulldogs. Athens is only 45 minutes away from Georgia. With that said, Alabama is going to travel this game very well. I wouldn't be surprised to see it being, a 55% flip to where, Georgia has just a little bit more fans than Alabama. We've seen it before, but Alabama fans are going to this game 100%, making it uncomfortable in terms of, look, again, I've seen games like this where the crowd can be a factor in the opposing end zones. I'm serious. I mean, I look at some of the SEC championship games where I've seen these 2 teams play. Those type of things come into play. But I think that getting heat on the quarterback, I think consistent play from the quarterback position, as we talk now probably about Alabama's offense, you want to come out and be able to hit the big bully right in the mouth. And can Alabama do that? And I think if they do that early, that'll set the tempo as well. So turnovers and a big play from Alabama on one of these opening drives, because we've seen Alabama's offense really evolve, and Coach Saban talked about kind of the transformation from week 2 up to this point. But this team has done a really good job for the last several games coming out of the gates and playing and getting the football into the end zone. And doing that in a game like this will certainly make Georgia uncomfortable.
100%. You have got to get them off their mark. Alabama has to come off strong. And the one thing before we transition to offense, I will give Georgia, as much as you have to bracket Brock Bowers, that's a tongue twister, they've got a lot of weapons outside of Bowers. And when he went down, they were really able to foster a level of coherence and cohesion that was impressive to see. So Kool-Aid's going to get tested this Saturday. This is not going to be one of those Saturdays where he can just kind of continue to be Kool-Aid, right? Because he's just shutting down a half of the field. Nobody wants to test his side. They have enough weapons where he will get tested. I think we could see Kool-Aid make a big play this weekend because he's due. He just hasn't been tested this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, and I think I said that on one of my earlier shows.
You did.
We might be waiting for Kool-Aid to make like this game-changing play, and a lot of it is maybe teams haven't been going to him, and they've been going towards Terry Arnold, which has been really difficult to do as well. And outside of Kool-Aid being replaced at punt returner, Kool-Aid has played a really good season. Honestly, there's been really nothing in terms of a defensive back. There's been a couple times because he plays the sideline in terms of he doesn't turn his head around like you would like to see, but other than that, I mean, he's been tough to get passes to if you're a quarterback. And like I said, Alabama has been tested for sure. Think about all the receivers they've won against. Xavier Worthy, right? The guys from Ole Miss. Nia Smith at the slot position. Musa Muhammad from Texas A&M. The guys from Tennessee. The Malik Neighbors. My goodness. I mean, we could go on and on. So these guys have been challenged at the corner position, but we all know that Brock Bowers is a different element, being that he is a tight end, and the fact that Georgia does use our screens very well. I think one of the great things about Georgia's offense is how they're able to come up with some screens to get their football players the ball, but also they have some screens to their running backs that I'd like to see Alabama use that they've done in the past. But whatever the case, I mean, this is a really balanced offense, and I like what Georgia's been able to do on that side of the ball.
You hit the word right there for Georgia. When I think of Georgia, this year and last, I think of balance. And it's real difficult to win against balanced football teams. Luckily, Alabama is an exceptionally talented football team and is trending up. Let's look at this Alabama offense, right? Biggest X factor for the Alabama offense. I'll kick this off. I'm going to be a little bit boring, Kyle. To me, it's Milroe, right? Because he is the one who will distribute the ball. He is the one that will be running this offense, and he is the one that may be the most gifted player on the football field any given Saturday. My key to victory for Alabama's offense is this: make Georgia assume. Tommy Rees got into a real great sequence right before Auburn, several games, about creating assumptions for a defense. And even during the Auburn game, you thought you'd see a tush-push. You had Roydell Williams squirt out for the first down. I mean, stuff. You have got to take advantage of incorrect assumptions by Georgia. This Georgia defense has been aggressive. They are very aggressive. They will pin their ears back and they will attack. If you can make them assume, you can take advantage. Kyle, I'm going to open this up to you, man. First and foremost, who do you have as Alabama's X factor on the offensive side?
Well, I think the obvious, like you said, is Jalen Milroe, just because he is he has that gravity in the game to really just change the entire thing. I mean, he could really make Georgia pay every single play because of his running ability. And if he is unleashed and he has to take over the game and go Milroe mode, go Milroe monster mode, as I like to say, then, that's a tall task for any defense, especially even this Georgia defense. Other X factors that I look for in this game on the offensive side of the ball, let's go with a player from the offensive line, and Caden Proctor. I mean, Caden Proctor, you don't really necessarily look at offensive, X factors being guys from the offensive line, but this is another opportunity for a young freshman offensive tackle to rise up and to show continued development in a big-time game. He was recently the SEC Freshman of the Week for his continued play. You look to how he's transformed as a player from the beginning of the season up to right now. It's been really amazing. On the opposite side, you have J.C. Latham, you have Seth at the middle, you have Tyler Booker, you have Jaden Roberts. So the offensive line, not only do they do a good job protecting Jalen Milroe, but I think overall, this has been a good group that has been able to help Alabama's balanced offense, right, running the football. And, whether Jace is healthy or not, I guess we'll have to see, but Alabama has depth at the running back position. Roydell Williams, Jam Miller. So there's a lot of X factors, but maybe outside of Jalen Milroe, let's see how Caden Proctor, a freshman offensive tackle, can fare in a game like this, and if he can continue to show a consistent level of play on the biggest stage in all of college football on Saturday.
He has really trended in a positive direction this year. That goes to show something I talk about all the time, Kyle. I'm sure you've had this conversation on your show as well. The jump from high school football to college football, it might as well be two totally different sports, especially when we're talking offensive line. In high school, he could have been blocking me. Well, now he's blocking a guy who's been in Georgia for 4 years, and that strength and conditioning, those are two totally different scenarios. It has been really encouraging to see him struggle early, but put his head down, work, and show, like, I'm not worried about that because I know the type of player I am. I know the program I came to, and this is all the process. That embodies the process. And now, I mean, he's played really good football. I actually had someone on my show the other day who played at Kentucky, transferred to Louisville, played there, played for the Browns, and now he trains some of these guys. And he was breaking down Caden Proctor for me. And he was saying that Caden Proctor has been so interesting all year because through much of the year, he might get beat by something in the first half. He said, but come the second half, he's not getting beat by that same move. He said he has a really smart mind to learn from his mistakes. And he thought that kid had a real bright future in front of him. I love to hear it. We also have someone in chat saying Burton could be an X factor in this as well. And wouldn't that be poetic justice, Kyle?
Yes, love it.
Wouldn't that be poetic justice? What do you think Alabama has to do? I said create assumptions. What do you think is a key to victory for Alabama's offense against this Georgia defense?
Well, first of all, I love the X factor being Jermaine Burton. I think the person in the comment box absolutely hit the nail on the head. In fact, you know, when you look to the wide receivers from Alabama, Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Bond, who caught the game winner against Auburn, Kendrick Law, how they were able to utilize him with that shovel or reverse in this last game, that in a game that didn't count, a touchdown that didn't count, Amari Niblack. But Jermaine Burton specifically, he has kind of that ability, that dog mentality that you want on the offensive side. And being that he used to play against Georgia, you can only imagine the anticipation that he must have even right now on Thursday night, looking forward to that game, going against his former team, being doubted last year. The entire season, he has played with that Lank mentality. He has played with a chip on his shoulder. He's played amped up, and yeah, absolutely, he could certainly be an X factor. I think that, you know, when we look to how Alabama, did you say how Alabama could beat Georgia, Ty?
Yeah, I said my take on that was create assumptions. I'm curious on getting your thoughts on that.
Look, I think that Tommy Rees has done he's grown up. So is Alabama's offense. They're not sophomores anymore. These guys are juniors. Tommy Rees isn't, he's not overwhelmed by Alabama, all the weapons that he has. He's ready. He's continued to show maturation. Kevin Still has been the backbone, and these guys have really transformed. Coach Saban said today the biggest thing has been the transformation of the offense. The offense is ready, and I think the offense is going to really challenge Georgia. I mean, how could they not? Look at all the weapons and how they utilize them. We know what the game plan is. The game plan is to get the ball to Burton over the top, hit Isaiah Bond in playmaking plays, get the ball to Kobe Prentice kind of out on the short routes. I think figure out how to get Amari Niblack the football, maybe a touchdown or two. You look to guys like Jace, if he's healthy, and Roydell. Those guys have really done a great job running through the tackles. I mean, these guys don't go down on first contact. You have Jam Miller, who's the same. Who knows? Maybe even Justice Haynes gets an opportunity. So we know the game plan, and we know that this offense has continued to improve. So I think that if this offense can come out and just play good football, and what that means is don't create turnovers, don't have drives that stall out because of penalties. That means that you move the chains on, a 3rd and 1. You're able to stay creative with almost like the tush push, or you sweep it out. How they've been able to do that recently, and I think if you do those small things, you're able to beat Georgia. This Georgia team is very talented, is very good, is clearly the number one team in college football, but they are beatable. And it's not because of this Georgia team is vulnerable. They're beatable by this Alabama team. This Alabama team can beat anybody in the field right now, 100%, including Georgia. And that's just not, fansy talk. They can. I mean, this team hasn't lost in, 10 games? This team knows what's at stake. This team knows that it's an elimination game if they lose. Same thing if they would have lost last week. They would have been out. This team knows what's at stake. This team is talented enough to beat the Georgia Bulldogs not once but twice. This Alabama team is dangerous, and the offense, what did I say? I said, go back and watch my videos 7 weeks ago, whatever. I said, if this offense ever catches up with the defense, they're going to win a national championship. Have they caught up to the defense? I don't know, but they've been making steps towards that defense. And if they do, they will not lose another football game. They're going to go toe-to-toe down to the wire with the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm telling you right now, this Alabama team is the most dangerous team in all of college football.
I agree completely, and I think it is on all three phases. Because the often forgot about special teams, Kyle. There's a guy on Alabama's roster that is one field goal away from being the all-time leading scorer in NCAA, Will Reichert.
Yeah. And he needs to tighten up. You look at the games against LSU, he missed 2 field goals. You look at the game last week against Auburn. I don't know. Sometimes when you're on special teams, things can start to live up in your mind. I don't know if that's going to translate to Saturday. I still have confidence in him, but he needs to tighten it up because even though the record is 1 point away or whatever, people remember those misses. And in a game like this, you have to come with it. You have to come through. Same with James Burnup. You can't have a shanked punt in this game or a block punt, a turnover in this game on special teams. The momentum keeping the momentum in this type of game is vital. If you lose the momentum in this game, you might have well lost the game.
True. These are what happens when Goliaths go to battle.
Yeah.
One wrong move and it could be over, right? I mean,
100%.
Kyle, I've said this all the time. My second favorite sport in the world is combat sports, whether that be boxing, UFC. Mm-hmm. And it's very analogous. You get 2 of the highest level fighters in there at the same time, one wrong move.
That's it.
That could be the end of it.
That's it.
30 seconds into the fight, one wrong move, that's it.
That's done.
Luckily, Alabama is, I think, the only team in the nation that can line up toe-to-toe with Georgia and say, athlete for athlete, we can run with you.
Yeah.
We can run all day with you. And I think that's very compelling. Let's get into predictions in this game. I've thought about this long and hard, Kyle. And I think this is going to be a tough game. Give me the Crimson Tide 31-28. And then after we talk about predictions, we're going to talk about what we could expect come Sunday with the committee.
Yeah, I like Alabama 35-31. Somehow it gets to that score. Maybe in some way Alabama knocks on a late field goal or something like that. I don't know. Score predictions are really difficult, but maybe so. Let's do 34-28 or something like that. And you have Alabama kicking, a couple field goals there at the end or something like that. I just think that special teams is going to come into play. And when you have a weapon like Will Reichert, I think he's going to come with it this game. And I think he's going to hit, maybe 2 or 3 field goals. But I do like Alabama. I know that Georgia is 4.5-point favorite, or did it slide to 5? I think it might have slid to 6, right? It might have slid to 6.
Let me see what it's at right now.
I think it might have slid to 6, whatever the case is. I mean, Alabama, I think they have enough offense, and I think that their defense has been battle-tested. And, straight up, I mean, these two teams hate each other. I mean, this is a rivalry game. These two teams don't like each other. Kirby Smart wants to continue to separate himself in any way, shape, or form away from Nick Saban and all the stuff that he had with Alabama. And I get it. What he's doing at Georgia, it looks to be very special. And if Georgia beats Alabama on Saturday, Georgia wins the national title, and that'll be 3 in a row. I mean, Kirby Smart making, a run at, that's the dynasty. That's the new dynasty. So there's a lot at stake right now, not only the playoffs, the SEC championship game, but going forward, I mean, the dynasty is at stake. And if the dynasty, starts with Georgia, if they make a step to 3 in a row, that's 100% a dynasty.
No argument. I mean, by all definitions, that is a dynasty. And look, that doesn't spell the end for Alabama, but it certainly is a shifting landscape. But Alabama has the ability to stop that from happening.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like with Georgia, I mean, there's so much at stake because you look at the NIL game, right? Or name, image, and likeness, and you look to the transfer portal, and you look to where do you want to go? What can we do to get you not only to the college football playoffs, but to win a national title and to get you to the ultimate NFL? I mean, both of these programs can do that. That's why I think it's a travesty that there's a lot of people saying that one of these teams could get left out of the playoffs. I think honestly, honestly, Ty, I think both of these teams end up making the college football playoffs. I've said it before. I mean, I know we might touch on this here, at the back end of the show, but I don't think Florida State is a playoff team. I don't even think they're a playoff team with Jordan Travis. I think that the Pac-12 has had a great season, but I just don't think, in my opinion, that either of those teams has the resume to be at the top 4. So I don't know. But I think that it's going to be sad that one of these SEC teams gets left out of the playoffs.
You're not going to hear an argument from me on that in the slightest. And this is the perfect time to go into that. Alabama beats Georgia. Let's start off the conversation with that, right? I like to speak things into existence. Mm-hmm. So Alabama beats Georgia. Does the committee let them in the playoffs? I think it would be a travesty if the answer was no. And I agree with you. Mm-hmm. The committee said something interesting. They said they're after the 4 best teams, not the 4 most deserving, which tells me there's a possibility one of those teams, probably Florida State, right? It seems like they're trying to cushion the fallout for if they leave Florida State out. But I think Louisville might take care of that anyways. I'm going to pose to you this scenario, Kyle. Louisville takes care of Florida State.
Okay.
Iowa can't stand up to Michigan because Iowa can't score. So that's Michigan wins.
Okay.
Oregon beats Washington. Texas wins. Bama wins. In my opinion, your 4 college football playoff teams, no order. Mm-hmm. Michigan, Texas, Bama, Georgia.
Yeah.
Those are your 4 best teams.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think you're right, and I do agree with that. However, I mean, this committee, what scares me about that scenario is the committee loves the teams from the Pac-12. They've loved those style points. I mean, they continue to harp on them, and I think that, to be honest, I mean, I hate saying this, but I think that the Pac-12 has punched a ticket, and I think that they're really the only team that has punched a ticket to the playoffs. You're either going to have Oregon or Washington. I mean, these guys love the Pac-12, so then, who knows with Michigan? I mean, sometimes things can go squirrely with that, all the stuff that's happened. Can you imagine if Iowa is the one team that nobody has talked about all year besides them, barely putting points on the board, and they're able to beat up Michigan? That would be like beyond epic college football headlines, right?
Amazing.
Florida State, I think even if they win, look, I get it. You win, you go 13-0 with your quarterback out, and you still don't get a seat at the table. I'm sorry, but you play in the ACC. And the ACC, we saw what happened when Louisville and Kentucky squared up just last week. I mean, you couldn't even beat a Kentucky-type team. So I think Louisville will win anyways, but who knows? And then I think if Alabama, this is what scares me, is if Alabama beats Georgia and Texas wins, that the committee still takes Georgia over Alabama as well as Texas.
That would be just terrifying, but I would wonder what their argumentation would be, because at that point, head-to-head win kind of becomes a squirrely metric to go off of.
And with that, that's why I don't think it makes sense the more I think about it, because you would have the SEC champion and undefeated in SEC play, and then with Texas beating Alabama, theoretically you could say, well, Texas beat Alabama, therefore Texas should be seated above Georgia as well. Right, so if you go with head-to-head, which I think they will, but I mean, what scares me is how they did TCU last year, right? Like Kansas State. I mean, not that Kansas State was going to make the playoffs, but they still took TCU into the playoffs over a 2-loss Alabama team at the time.
True, and I think the one thing that I will say to kind of ease the fears there is that Kansas State had, 3 losses?
Yeah, they weren't going to make it, yeah.
So that kind of paved a way for the whole situation to get real messy. But you are right.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw Kansas State run it up on TCU, show everybody, hey, they're a good team, sure, but they're not going to win the national championship. And look what Georgia did to them, right? We don't want to see that again. Yep. And I fear that, they're going to have the backup quarterback for Florida State. If Florida State wins, if the committee puts them in, Georgia will turn them into minced meat. Georgia will just absolutely clobber them, and that's not going to be good. We're after the 4 best teams. I don't see a world where if Alabama downs Georgia, they're left out, because then you'd have to argue to me that the SEC champion is left out of the college football playoff. Kyle, can you imagine that?
No, that would just be terrible. What I'm thinking about right now is like Michigan. Oh, no. I'm thinking about right now. Can you imagine if Georgia and Florida State in the first round, or Alabama and Florida State meet up. Like, I mean, man, like Florida, it's so crazy that, Florida State is, up in this mix right now when they just are not a playoff team. And, I mean, maybe we'll see that on, when they play Louisville, but I don't know. I mean, they're going to have a tough time. And I think the Pac-12, they could fare okay because of their offense, but the SEC just carries so much weight.
True. Well, look, I think the hard thing for the Pac for me, man, is that when I look at Oregon, college football is supposed to be great because of meritocracy. I think it's fantastic that you've beat up on a bunch of high school opponents by 55 points. I think that's amazing. You're beating teams exactly the way you should. Congratulations. But it's not the same as what Georgia has done. It's not the same as what Texas has done or what Alabama has done. Like, those teams have played good teams. Texas scheduled Bama, right? Like, they went out of their way to say, all right, we'll take Bama early. There's not many teams that would schedule Alabama week 2. Texas didn't mind getting down and dirty. Like, they went out of the way, and then they played college football ranked teams throughout the season. Oregon just does not have the resume to be. Now, that being said, if they beat Washington, that's a huge win. Personally, though, Kyle, it just rubbed me the wrong way whenever they asked the committee this week, stated back, Oregon has the win over Oregon State, and Bo Nix is thrown for over 70% completion. And I was like, what are we doing here?
I know. The style points. They love the style points. And, with them having a lot of style points this season, I think that's going to be the catalyst to get the Pac-12 teams in.
It has to be. It has to be, which is why hopefully, I don't think it'll happen, but hopefully Alabama can beat Georgia with some style points. Wouldn't that be lovely if they just go in there and shellac them, and then it's just like, okay, well, we can't leave them out. Jeez. Let's just link. Let all naysayers know. Kyle, this has been a ton of fun, my man. Any closing words, anything that the fans need to be looking out for on Saturday that you don't think we had the opportunity to talk about?
No, I think we covered up the storylines. I think we went over the injury reports to recap. Kirby Smart was pretty vague on Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. Same was Coach Saban with Jace McClellan, and that's to be, understood kind of going into this, a couple days away from the biggest game in college football. I think we kind of looked to the progress of those players before the game. I will be at the game, so you can follow me on Twitter. I don't post an overwhelmingly amount on Twitter, but all the stuff's back on YouTube. So, we know the storylines, and it's time for these two teams, the best teams in college football, to play each other. Like you said when we started off the show, I mean, this is very well, the college football championship. Everybody knows. You think about the ratings. Where are the ratings going to be? Are they going to be in Michigan and Iowa? No. Are they going to be out in the Pac-12? It's going to be a fun game to watch on Friday night for sure. You have Texas taking on Oklahoma State. Okay, that's moderately interesting as well. New Mexico State taking on my New Mexico State Aggies, taking on Liberty.
There you go.
That's an interesting game to me. But all eyes, let's face it. I mean, Georgia and Alabama and the SEC still drive the world of college football. Everybody's going to be watching this game, and it's an opportunity for Alabama to showcase that, hey, we still are here. We still are standing. You guys thought we were vulnerable. Well, we just beat your number one team in college football. And for Georgia, it's an opportunity to be like, look, we told you guys before that we were going to beat Alabama. We told you guys that we're going to make a run at number 3 again, and we did it. So come with it, and we are the number one team in college football. So can't wait. There's so many storylines, 2 amazing quarterbacks, 2 quarterbacks that have transformed to play at the top of their game. Can't wait to see it on Saturday.
Yeah, 2 absolute Goliaths playing unbelievable football. I have nothing to take away from the Georgia Bulldogs, Kirby Smart, what they have done. He is running an insane program.
For sure.
What I will say is this, though, the college football fans, as we part ways. This is going to feel dirty. But if you want for the Georgia Bulldogs to be disrupted in their dominance, you will be rooting for the Crimson Tide come Saturday to absolutely throw a wrench into the season and cause more chaos. Chaos, ladies and gentlemen, is a beautiful thing in our beloved game. We can't wait to see what the game does. We'll be watching closely, and we'll be here to break it all down come next week if Bleacher Report will have us. Kyle, it has been a fantastic evening. Get there safe, man. You got a ways to go in front of you, don't you?
A little bit of a drive, but it's all good, man. I mean, I'm really blessed to be able to be, here talking college football with you, and then, seeing the game in Atlanta. So, I love what I do. Really blessed to cover college football and, of course, the Alabama Crimson Tide. So can't wait to, get through this weekend and see what shakes out on Sunday.
And where can they find the best coverage of Alabama football on YouTube? Where do you
thanks,
do all
man.
that?
Yeah, so Bama football on YouTube. Bama football on YouTube, and live every day, Monday through Friday. And, of course, all the content back on Bama football on YouTube. Appreciate you, Ty, man. You do such a great job. I'm so happy that we linked up, man. It's really a blessing. You're certainly on a rocket ship, and we really appreciate Bleacher Report for providing us this platform to talk college football. It's a really amazing thing that they got going with, local content creators that cover the teams coming to their platform. So if you're watching on the app, we appreciate you guys. And if you're watching back on YouTube, definitely download the Bleacher Report app, not only for college football, but they got NFL news, NBA, whatever your sports forte is, Bleacher Report got you covered.
Yeah, and they're getting your favorite analysts to come in and talk. I think it's an unbelievable thing. Kyle, it has been such a treat getting to sit here and talk with you this evening. Make it there safe. For everyone watching, enjoy your evening. We'll see you very soon. And as always, roll Tide.